Time for Don't Fear the Reaper by TotallyNotABrony. Chapter 1. Just that. There was an unexpected upside to beating a man to death. Sonata just sat beside a dumpster in an alley in the bad part of Crystal City, licking blood from her fingers. It wasn't the nourishment she had intended that night. The previous fanfic, she was trying to order a pizza. But it turned out to be just the thing that she needed. Overall, her evening was looking up. Running her car out of gas, running her cell phone out of battery, attempted mugging at an ATM. It would have taken a miracle to turn things around, and that's what she got. Some random thug probably didn't intend to change her life for the better by robbing her. He hadn't been very good at that, though, and now he's dead, and she was feeling awesome. Sirens like herself feed on negative feelings. Hate, jealousy, feared. Just before she cracked the man's skull open, he'd been utterly terrified. The emotion in his blood tasted sweeter than anything she'd ever sampled before. It was as if her eyes had been opened anew to the world. After the fiasco at the school where she and her sisters had been stripped of their magic, Sonata could still sense negative emotions, but was utterly powerless to feed on them. The scents and miasmas of emotion stayed just out of reach, frustrating her. But now the negative energy of the world suddenly turned from taunting her to feeling most inviting. She had just learned to get it from a new source. It was like the best night ever. Sonata pushed herself up, head buzzing. She swayed and gripped a dumpster for support. She never felt anything like this before. Her vision was clear, a red haze fading as the taste slowly left her mouth. She felt better than she had in weeks. Her hands shook, but it was more to do with unexpected energy than weakness. Definitely not weakness. She smiled. Staggering out of the alley, she had trouble going in a straight line. Sonata chalked it up to her body trying to go in so many directions at once, trying to rein in and control the infusion of power she'd just gotten. Who knew the solution to her problem was literally inside everyone around her? Sonata walked a couple of blocks back to the car. So much energy vibrating around inside her body that she felt like skipping, but settled for flexing her fingers and wiggling her hands. She was still riding the high, but her mind began to sharpen again. She held out the car, put it in neutral. A push with just one hand got it moving. Sonata grinned even wider. Oh yeah, I'm back, baby. Down the street, she could just see the lights of a gas station. And in just a few minutes, she was there. After filling up, she went inside to pay, passing a large cash-only sign that had prompted her to go to the ATM. The clerk sat behind a thick plexiglass barrier. Their eyes met as Sonata walked up. The reflection of herself in the shiny plastic showed that her teeth were still on full display in a wide grin. The clerk didn't smile. He stared at her like she was crazy, keeping at least one eye on her while he made change for the money she gave him. Sonata wondered if she could break the glass. Her fingers itched to try. Or maybe it would be easier to sing a little song and get him to do whatever she wanted. Her fingers went to her throat. Oh, the voice had been taken away by those girls at school. Well, shit! She forgot about that. The clerk froze as he saw her manic smile suddenly change into a dark scowl. He stuffed her change through the slot and backed away. She could smell the fear coming off of him. She couldn't feed on that, though, but with her newfound discovery. She then suddenly realized there were at least 3 security cameras pointed at her. She stared at one, and the clerk stared too. She turned back to face them, and her lips turned up again. The camera saved his life, and she wanted him to know that. Based on that extra shot of emotion she sensed he did. She turned on her heel and went back outside. As she got into the car, it occurred to her that the ATM also probably had a camera. Well, there was nothing that could be done about it now. She cleaned up the mess for the whole head-smashing thing pretty well, so there shouldn't be any reason for anyone to look up the tape. She drove back to Canada Lot, practically having a one-siren dance party in her car. She didn't remember the last time she was in such a good mood. Usually, Daggio and Aria would call her stupid or something, and it would ruin the day. After this, though, her sisters would see what she could really do. Sonata discovered a way out of their predicament. They could get their power back and emerge from the shadows they'd been forced to crawl into. Actually, a thought just struck her as she came into view of the secluded house she shared with her sisters. Should she tell them? What if she was wrong about this? No, there was no mistaking that surge of power. Using blood to ingest the fear and emotion they had been denied was a stroke of genius. She was definitely on the way back to her old self. The real reason Sana shouldn't tell them was that once they too started drinking blood, the three of them would be back to the status quo. She was going to keep this little secret to herself. Her sisters were never going to look down on her again. She pulled into the driveway and got out of the car. A few lights on in the house. Both her sisters were probably still awake. Her mouth grinned of its own accord. Showtime. Arya was at the computer, looking even thinner and more skeletal than usual in the electronic glow of the monitor. She turned, stubbing out her cigarette when Sonata came in. How's the surfing? Sonata asked. What? You know how you're always on a computer surfing the net or couch surfing when you're sleeping. Sonata pointed to the rumpled blanket and pillow on the couch. Arya slept there to be closer to the computer. The joke didn't get a reaction. Arya just turned around and get back to her online poker game. The counter indicated that she was up by several $1,000s. Shit. She has a gambling addiction. Adagio was in the kitchen eating something. None of them were very good at cooking, so an unidentifiable item on a plate was a common sight, which made Sonata smile again. A liquid diet was something better and better all the time. Well, sounding better. Especially since all Adagio seems to do these days was eat, attempting to replace the nourishment she had once savored. Wasn't working, but it had done a number on her body. Why are you wearing that stupid grin? Adagio asked. I went out for pizza. I had a great meal. So not only just realized that her original goal of driving around in the middle of the night hadn't been met, but even pizza wouldn't have made her so happy. Adagio just let it go, and Sonata went on through the kitchen, mounted the stairs to her bedroom to be alone in her secret. She sprawled out on her bed, and remembering her dev phone, she plugged it into charge. As the screen lit up, she selected a music app and put on headphones. She settled back to think about what she should do next. If her plan was going to work, she had to find another person to murder. Sonata's brows furrowed at the thought, but then shrugged. Well, if that's how it has to be. It might be cool to be a superhero prowling the city at night, taking out criminals. Nobody would miss them. Sounded like a lot of effort, though, and nobody would like a superhero that ate people. She was only mildly disappointed by the infeasibility of superherodom. It sounded like it would require a costume, and Sonata has never been great at that kind of thing. The song shifted to something faster. Hollywood Undead. Huh, okay. That tripped another line of thought. She was technically undead, being immortal and feeding off the life force of others, but drinking blood made her a vampire? Well, as long as it doesn't make me a zombie. Although she found herself curious as to how brain might taste, especially one charged with fear. It would clearly require more nights out for research, but the power would be worth it. Daji and Ari would see. Tomorrow, Sonata decided she will kill someone and drink their blood. Now on to Chapter 2. The next day would have arrived a lot sooner if Sonata had been able to sleep. She wasn't feeling hyperactive in the morning, though she wasn't sure if it was because she had gotten used to the charge of power, from the day before, or if it was wearing off. It would be good to know how long she could expect a high from a sip of blood to last. Answers like that would come as part of her nighttime research. She just couldn't wait. She tried to stay in bed as long as possible, but the sound of the TV downstairs would have kept her awake even if she tried. She finally sighed and got up, leaving her room to go downstairs. Adagio was watching TV, chewing on a Danish. Arya asleep on the couch, the sound of the program apparently not bothering her. It wasn't all that loud, really. Apparently, Sonata's hearing had sharpened. Adagio didn't look up as Sonata came into the room. She was just watching the news. Body's been discovered when a dumpster had been emptied at the landfill. Showed a man's mugshot pre-death. Sonata frowned. Granted, the man she killed the night before had been discovered. Yeah. Granted, the man she killed the night before being discovered at a landfill after being transported in a dumpster was better than being found near the ATM where she'd been caught on camera. It would have been better if she'd hidden the body so it wouldn't be found at all. The phone chimed and she looked at it. Noon. She has an appointment at 1. Going back upstairs, she took a quick shower and put her hair into the usual ponytail. Putting on a tank top and yoga pants, she headed out of the house. Sonata rented a small studio downtown for personal training. Taught a few classes. Most of her income comes from private instruction. A great way to stay in shape and make people feel bad about themselves at the same time. Well, that's new. I guess that explains all those yoga classes. People are fucking demented. I know. Her appointment that day was with Mr. Tire Tracks, a man trying to lose. Okay. This is new. Mr. Tire Tracks. Let me guess. He has a spare on his fucking belly.
He has wheels on his shoes. I don't know.
Spare tire. It's a thing saying you're fat.
Ha ha ha.
He surely needs to try to lose weight. If he'd gone to anyone else, he might even be pleased with his progress. Sonata wasn't a strategist like Arya or persuasive like Adagio, but being able to sense negative emotions gave her insight as to which insults each person felt the most. Let's see if you actually want to work out today and lose that fat ass, she said to Mr. Trax by way of greeting. Damn.
Brutal.
Sonata also noticed that if her attitude was chirpier despite her comments, people resent her even more. She smiled. And it worked. Mr. Trax exercised until sweat poured off of him. In an attempt to please her, or at least to escape her beratement, it was a delicate balancing act, making the person miserable but not fed up enough to leave, making them believe that the hostility was their own fault. When 1 hour session was up, sweat and misery poured off Mr. Trax. He stood up and promptly swayed, nearly fall. Sonata grabbed his arm. What kind of idiot are you? You know you're supposed to stay hydrated. He mumbled an apology and left. Sonata glanced at her hand, wet with sweat. A thought struck her. Would other bodily fluids work? She licked her hand and immediately grimaced, spitting. The sweat not only tasted like him, but it was devoid of any negative energy. She muttered, "Fuck nuggets."
Wow.
Nuggets sound pretty tasty.
No, chicken tendies sound better.
Fucking hell no. Mostly about the taste, but partially about the failed experiment. Killing people was a lot less convenient than her day job, but it was still the only solution she could see. Sonata then drove home, stopping by for lunch on the way. A guy openly ugled her ass in the yoga pants, so she keyed his car in the parking lot. You don't fuck with her.
That's what happens.
Back at the house, she changed clothes, adopting jeans and a hoodie. Adagio was still out of her job. Arya was still making money off internet poker. Sonata was not still anything. She had a plan, and she was going to change things. In the kitchen, she inspected her knives in a drawer. The biggest carving knife was tempting, but it wouldn't fit the pocket of the hoodie. So she picked up the steak knife, but the serration seems like it wouldn't make clean slices. So it was the medium chef's knife it was. Sonata walked out of the house as the sun was setting without a clear idea where she's going. Back to the seedy part of Crystal City where she had been the night before seems Seemed like likely hunting grounds, but someone might get suspicious. Fuck it. A second one wouldn't hurt. She'd have to be more careful about the next one. But who to choose? Not someone disgusting, she decided. Even if that didn't make them taste worse, the presentation was important as flavor. Cruising the streets, she kept watch for a potential mark. Sunset and the street lights, the ones that worked in this part of town, came on. She searched for some music. Maybe ska, something to get her pumped, not too pumped. Streetlight Manifesto, it could fit the aesthetic of the darkened city. She was getting a little hungry, but she was getting a lot impatient as the night wore on. Either there were too many people around as witnesses, or there was no people to be found at all. Some of them were clearly strung out on something. Not that drugs would affect her system, but it was the thought that counted. She turned a corner and saw her. A woman seemed to be in a hurry, carrying a purse over one shoulder. Probably in her early 20s, seemed healthy. Appearances could be deceiving, of course, but hopefully they would also be delicious. She glanced around the street as she passed the woman. No cameras that she could see. Turned to the next block and parked. Putting her hood up and placing her hand on the knife in her pocket, she walked towards the mark. A slow look up and down the street, she could see no one else. She smiled. I think we're about to get a murder in this chapter.
Hooray.
The distance dwindled as the two of them approached each other. The woman glanced at Sonata, who averted her eyes. They drew even. She pulled a knife and whirled, plunging it between the ribs on the left side of the woman's spine, straight through the heart. The mark's knees buckled and she fell. Huh. That was easier than expected. Sonata knelt and pulled the knife out, covered in blood, and more oozed out of the wound. The mouth watered. She took out her tongue and ran it over the blade, but tasted only blood. Her brows furrowed, and she licked the knife again. Nothing. No fear, terror, just a heavy, sticky irony flavor. But it hit her suddenly. She killed the woman so quickly there hadn't been time for the mark to realize, much less scared. Son of an axe whore, she said. Punched the body, hearing a crack that might have been a rib. She stood up, teeth snarling. Now she'll have to go find someone else. The woman's purse lay where it fell. Sonata kicked over, spilling some contents. A small fold of cash. Oh, sweet. That would buy her a snack to help her forget that she was rapidly losing the energy she imbibed the night before. It would also make this look like a common robbery. She wiped the knife off the body and went back to the car. She killed somebody for, well, Sonata counted it, $40. Not the negative energy she needed. She snorted. She was too good at killing, apparently, although this was better than being bad at it, she supposed. She shook her head. Snack first, then try again later. Still not Joe's open? No, she'd been banned from that place. Sugar Cube Corner? No, Pinkie Pie would be there. Facing her and her friends while this week would be a disaster. But if she could get her power back, they would be paying for what they did to her and her sisters. Speaking of, she realized they would be calling her an idiot for spending the last few minutes sitting in a car less than a block away from a dead body. A burger, Sana decided as she drove away. A rare one.
How did I guess?
Oh. I realized that Super wanted to join on the stump.
Yeah.
But he's not on any channel, so...
You just tell him he can join the stump just because it's a free open area, is it not?
It's open. Some of these chapters are relatively short, about 1,000 words. There's a few that are like 2,000 words.
How many chapters are there?
10.
10? Like, there are stories you say we go through 5.
Maybe we'll see.
Another 5 another day.
Yeah. Sonata was beginning to realize, and this is chapter 3 by the way, just how difficult it was to kill people for a living. She had to not only find a suitable candidate, but also had to take her time, make sure they understood what's going on so they'll be properly terrified. On top of that, she had to do it incognito because exposing what she was up to would bring the whole world down on her head. She considered humans a lower form of life, but they held an enormous numbers advantage over sirens. She spent the morning in bed watching horror movies on the laptop and trying to expend as little energy as possible. The movies provided a distraction, and she hoped maybe a few ideas. Primary theme seems to be running away from monsters. She wasn't human, but she looked like one, and curse her sexy spandex-clad ass, this could distract from her goal of inflicting total paralyzing fear. Okay. To get ideas from that, perhaps she can go to the dark web looking up snuff films. Sonata may have been called an idiot, but she was smart enough to realize that she didn't know how to set up the connection to those places through virtual private networks and onion routers. Trying to do so would probably bring her to the attention of federal agents. She would just have to teach herself how to inflict pain and terror on people, and recognize that it would probably involve some trial and error. There are a lot of people out there, probably more than she could eat. Probably more than Daji could eat. Speaking of, guess who opened the door just now? What are you doing? Adagio asked. What do you mean? Oh, just the blood-curdling screams I keep hearing from here. It's just a movie. This one's my Rob Zombie. He kind of looks like you.
Oh wait, dude? It's probably Devil's Rejects. I guarantee it.
Adagio slammed the door. In the old days, she probably would have beaten the crap out of Sonata for that. Now none of them could summon the energy. All the more reason for Sonata to get her power back. She decided that maybe she should kidnap someone first before going to work on them. Give her ample time to get them good and scared before the bloodletting. But then where was she supposed to take them? A secure private location, obviously. She thought of her fitness studio, but dismissed it immediately. Downtown and too public. What about one of the houses Adagio was currently showing to realty customers? Oh, so Adagio is a realtor, I guess. Or a real estate agent. Maybe it's not bothered to care what Adagio was doing enough to know where the houses are. She grimaced. The hunger wasn't physical, not in her stomach, but it was coming back. After that glorious moment 2 days ago, after getting a taste of power, she never wanted to be so hungry again. She has to have someone. No. Now. Getting up, she went out the door and got in her car, taking the laptop with her in a backpack. If she couldn't find anyone or she had to wait, she'd at least have something to do. That's as far as her planning went, though. No clue what to do next, and was vaguely aware that setting out aimlessly was not a good idea. But she was desperate. She would do anything to keep from going back to the weakness she used to feel. 5 minutes later, she was in the heart of Candlelight. Too many people around, and the late afternoon sun offered her no concealment. She grumbled, "Cocksucker." Didn't make any sense in context, and that troubled her for a moment until she remembered she had bigger problems. Sonata passed by the school and did a double take. It was summer and no one's there. No one, that is, but a lone teenager just leaving the building. She turned to the parking lot. The kid was skinny and wore glasses. Sonata vaguely remembered his name, might have been Microchip, but didn't care to put much thought into it. He was alone. His head was down, texting or something on his phone, and didn't notice until she stopped her car right next to him. He looked up as she
Uh-oh.
got out of the car. Chip raised his hands and started to back away. I don't know what you want, but... She slugged him across the face. She could practically hear his brain rattling inside his skull from the impact. Her fist broke his glasses, and he went down. Sanada grabbed him by the collar while he was still stunned, paused to pick up his phone and the pieces of his glasses so as to not leave evidence, and dragged him to the back of her car. Popped the trunk, stuffed him in, shut the lid. That was step one. She glanced around and got back in the car, and now she has to find a good place to torture and kill him. Well, okay, eat, torture, and kill. Well, not in that order. Torture, then kill, then eat. Or maybe do all three simultaneously. That would quicken the satisfaction and maybe enhance the level of horror. The wooded mountains rising behind the school caught her eye. The forest will do nicely, especially as it got darker. She followed progressively narrower roads out into the wilderness until the path dead-ended. Night hadn't quite fallen, but surrounded by trees, it was dark enough that Sanada was confident they weren't being observed. The moon wasn't up yet, but she could see Chip by the trunk light when she popped the lid. He stared at her and blinked slowly. Well? Well, what? Whatever you're going to do, you might as well get it over with. He'd resigned himself. There was no fear, just weariness. What the fuck's wrong with you? Sanada demanded. Aren't you depressed or something? I'm the nerd nobody likes. My one shot at maybe getting some respect was running sound at the Battle of the Bands until you ruined that. Even after you were gone, I made a convenient scapegoat for what went wrong. Pills and therapy didn't do anything, maybe because of residual magic in the air or something. There's no way to fix that or me. I don't believe this. Chip sat up and looked around. He sighed. Well, if you aren't going to suck my life force or whatever, I guess I'll call a ride. He picked up a cell phone from the floor of the trunk and put it in a complicated unlock code. But she had an idea. You're pretty good with technology, right? Surprised, he looked up and dropped his eyes again. I guess. So I went around to the front of the car and grabbed her laptop. I want you to make sure my computer is secure so that the NSA can't find me. Why? I thought you didn't care. So he shrugged listlessly, manipulated his phone for a moment and linked it to Wi-Fi on the computer. After a few minutes, downloaded a few programs, configured them. I installed multi-layering routing routine and encrypted VPN. There's a README file, but you didn't bring me out here just to do that. No, I was... She stopped short, cocked her head. Someone was coming. She turned, scanning the darkening wounds, and a man in a green uniform and smoky bear hat came through the trees. Hello, the park's closed tonight. She kidnapped me, she stated. And the park ranger's hand dropped to the pistol at his side. Wait a second, you're Sonata Tusk. Well, okay. I guess everybody knows. The worry blooming in his emotion was beautiful. So she grabbed him by the throat and felt his panic wash over her. The ranger jerked out his gun, but she grabbed his arm. He struggled, she put some force behind the choking. Then she crushed his wrist. Fragments of bone shifting around beneath the skin felt like a bag of rocks, or at least that's what Sanada thought. She never felt bags of rocks before. Are you worried about that now? The ranger managed to get a scream out through the constricted throat. Slim fingers let go of the gun and Sanada caught it. She glanced at it briefly. She never handled one before. Touching the tip of the barrel to his chest, though, sent fear spiking even higher. She could hardly wait, but sure, she could eck out a little more. Traced the muzzle of the gun down, over his shirt, below the belt. Yeah, that did it. She smiled and pulled the trigger. His scream was louder than the shot. The ranger was crying and hanging limp to her grasp now. She raised the gun and adjusted to his head so that he would watch her lick the blood off a barrel. The taste hit her mouth like a tidal wave, washing over her, filling her up. In the back of her mind, she recalled some safety precaution about not sucking on guns, but it was hard to stop. Until the feelings poured from the man abruptly ceased. He passed out, his eyes rolled back, and his head hanging limp. The fuck? Sanada slammed her knee into the bloody injury down below, but it only produced a hitch in the man's breathing. Utterly nonplussed, Sanada shook her head. I can't believe this. She shook him. Wake up! No response. Anger rising. She put the gun to his head and pulled the trigger. A mist of blood splashed on her face. Pissed, she turned around. Chip stared at her wide-eyed. Sonata read the emotion on his face. Disgust. She shot him too.
Garbage day!
Damn it.
Oh, you got something to say? I'm the trash man.
Oh, God.
I'm a trashed man. I start eating garbage. Then I pick the trash can up and I bash him with it.
True.
All right, let's go on to chapter 4. Maybe we can reach chapter 5.
Maybe.
She already dumped 2 bodies in the woods. If anyone found them, she didn't think there was anything to tie them to her, except maybe the park ranger's gun, which she had taken with her. As night fell, her thoughts again turned back to where she could quench her thirst. Abducting Chip from the school had been dumb luck. She could maybe go trolling for targets in a bad part of town, but surely there had been an easier way. Somebody was still distributing phone books in this day and age. One had been dropped in the front porch a month ago, and Sonata was currently using it as a doorstop. She picked it up and flipped through a page. Using fancy internet incognito browser Chip installed, she put in the first personal address she saw. An apartment building downtown. No, too crowded. She tried another one, and then another. All in places too easy to observe. And then her finger fell on cinch, abacus. Well, this has ties to fucking friendship games. I hope this will be a cinch. Sonata typed in the address, and the mapping program revealed a solitary house at the end of a driveway that put it a few hundred yards from the road. Even better, the internet didn't reveal any marriage records for her. And she was the principal of Crystal Prep Academy, so no one would miss her until school was back in session. She got in the car. There was one line. What?
I'm just looking at what Famous Source said real quick.
No.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, Sonata's in the car. There was one line at the end on in that house as she pulled into the driveway. The headlights already off. Sonata got out but didn't slam the door. Sneaking up to the front door, she peered through the window and spotted a solitary pair of low-rise heels neatly arranged near the inside of the door. She took a step back and assessed the door. Squinting in the meager light, she was just able to make out that the deadbolt was securely locked. Circling the house, there was no obvious points of entry. Sonata hoped it wasn't a dog or something. Yeah, probably not in a house so freakishly neat. Looking through the windows, the place seems like practically every surface has reasonably washed and waxed. Sonata found Abacus Cinch in the living room, absorbed in a hardcover book. She was older, but seemed to be in excellent shape. Was she alone? She hadn't seen any evidence that pets or other people lived there. After circling the house completely, Sonata had come up empty on a stealthy way to enter the house. Such a nice and clean place was airtight. She then slapped herself on the forehead. What's the easiest way to open a door? You knock on it! Sure enough, in response to the tapping on the front door, Cinch opened it. What do you want? Sonata punched her in the gut and walked into the house as Cinch fell. She paused to lock the door. What? She wheezed. Sonata grabbed her slim throat and dragged her back into the living room. She pitched Cinch onto the couch where she had been. Ugh, I had a hard time saying that shit. A light classical number played from an expensive surround sound system. The book How to Win Friends and Influence People laid open on the coffee table, and beside it was a half glass of wine. Who are you? Cinch demanded, though her words struggled through having the wind knocked out of her. I'm Sonata. I'm a siren, and I'm going to kill you. Sonata Dusk? You were one of the troublemakers kicked out of Candlelight High, I recall. Thinking I'm going to let some reject. Sonata punched her again. Cinch fell back against the couch. though she at least attempted to block this time. That's not how this is going to work. I'm in charge here. You think fish sticks? Will you shut up? Not Sonata's proud to swear, but shouting it did at least get the desired effect. Left with a moment of silence, she shook her head and tried to get the conversation back on track. Or tried if it wasn't for the damn background music. She turned towards the cereal. Cinch got up and attempted to get away. But Sonata grabbed Cinch's arm, squeezing until the skin bulged between her fingers and nails pressed deep. You're not going anywhere. She threw her back on the couch and again moved for the stereo, but as soon as she took a step, Cinch got up. Again. There's nothing immediate apparent that could be used to tie up Cinch, so she broke both her legs. A quick twist and stomping on the knee did the trick. Oh, fuck.
That's brutal.
To Sonata's surprise, she didn't scream. She just convulsed in pain and let out a strangled gasp, but no vocalization. And the smooth classical music continued to play. Satisfied that her captor won't try to escape, she walked over and ejected the CD. She found the input port, connected to her phone, hit random, and another one bites the dust began to play. Not entirely what she was hoping for, but ironically appropriate. Oh. Okay. I'm just going to let that sit there for now. Oh. Sonata walked back over to the couch. As Cinch's teeth were gritted, only added to the glare she was giving Sonata, she managed to get out, "Why are you doing this?" "I told you I'm going to kill you." Her eyes went to the book on the table. She slapped it closed and shoved it to the floor. "Tell me a little about what led to this." "Wow, where to begin with that? Well, 1,000 years ago, my sisters and I were banished here. Last year, a bunch of girls from Canterlot High took away our singing voices and magic, and earlier this week, I discovered drinking blood is almost as good. I picked your name at random from the phone book. Life shit, huh?" Cinch was concerned, but not yet truly afraid. Was she really that resilient, even with broken bones and having already been told Sonata's intent? She still thinks she can get out of this. Wow, what an idiot. We should have enrolled at Crystal Prep instead. "I understand that must be rough for you," said Cinch. "Not nearly as rough as it is about to be for you," she said, and she grabbed Cinch's ankle and twists. Cinch grabs as broken tibia and fibula ground together. "I think this is unnecessary. If you want something from me, just ask. I'm just going to drink your blood, and I can just take that." She still appeared unmoved. "I should like to examine the biological process behind that. Surely my advanced laboratory at school can help you find a more convenient solution." What is with her? Was Cinch really so arrogant she believed she could talk her way out of any situation? She grabbed up a wine glass and broke it on the table, swiped the jagged edge across Cinch's cheek. The woman winced, although it probably wasn't as painful as 2 broken legs. She wiped her hand across Cinch's face. She lifted her palm, showing her blood. She also made sure Cinch watched her lick her fingers clean. The taste was still flat. Cinch's concern was growing, but it was more along the lines of disgruntlement. Well, Sonata just can't win, can she?
Nope.
Stop that! Stop that right now! She bursts out. "Do you realize how demeaning this is? Do you understand just how far outside societal norms you are? No one would even look at you with any sort of acceptance ever again. Bitch, I eat people!" Sonata had had enough.
Wait, did you actually just say that?
Yes.
Why did Helsing?
I know exactly what you mean. Bitch, I hate people!
Bitch, I hate people!
Was Cinch honestly more concerned about being unable to control the situation than about her own death? Do you realize I'm going to murder you in your own home? Do you understand that I'm going to consume you slowly while you're still alive? No one is ever going to know what happened to you or that you died alone by being fucking eaten. She grabbed Cinch's head and yanked her forward, putting her mouth directly on her wound. She licked up the trickling blood and tore the cut wide open with teeth. And now Cinch is afraid. Sanada's back arched in ecstasy as the fear hit her system. Whether Cinch was more afraid of dying or dying in obscurity, Sanada didn't care. All that mattered was the results. She picked at Cinch's face with her fingernails. Cinch jerked and tried to pull her head away, but there was nowhere she could go. Sanada started to peel her skin, and then finally came to scream. Sanada's vision had clouded red, and the entire world had narrowed down to just her and the blood. She felt like she was floating, and it was impossible to say how quickly time was passing. It was all one long, euphoric ride, like nothing she had ever experienced before. Right up until it stopped, along with Cinch's heart. She came out of her reverie, still feeling the after effects. She looked down. Everything within 5 feet was covered in spilled blood. Cinch looked like a mannequin covered in raw meat. Well, that was done. Sanada stood up. A carefree feeling settled over her. She couldn't remember ever feeling so energetic. Good, she giggled. And it was. Really wasn't any other word that she could think of. Good or not, however, she needed to get going. She spied her phone and realized a half hour had passed. She frowned, looking at the mess that had been left. A lot of evidence. She went into the kitchen, finding a candle and a box of matches. Turned the gas on the stove and went back to the living room, setting the candle on the coffee table and lighting it. She took a last look around, feeling like there was something she was missing. She had her phone. She had the house set to burn and erase the evidence. She shrugged, but she was sure she would remember eventually. On her way out, she spied the forgotten book and on impulse decided to pick it up. Outside, she got in a car and headed down the road. A minute later, a fireball in the rearview mirror. She smiled and turned up the music. She was still jiving while getting out of the car at home. She danced up the sidewalk, went into the house, and Adagio and Aria were watching the news. The helicopter footage showed a still burning house. Adagio glanced at her and did a double take so fast the bones on her neck clicked. What's that all over your clothes? Sanada knew she'd forgotten something. And now for the last chapter for now. Let's see. Oh, so what's on Sanada's clothes, huh? Just, raspberry jam, she said. You know me, such a class. It was delicious, though. This doesn't have anything to do with that burning house or the body they found inside, right? Asked Aria. Adagio grabbed the hem of Sanada's shirt. Looks like blood. So, funny story. People are actually filled with raspberry jam, which is delicious. Adagio let go. You idiot! Drawing this kind of attention was the last thing we need. What was you doing there? Fuck it. Sanada was strongest now. She could do whatever she wanted. Like I said, she was delicious. The realization dawned slowly. Aria blanched and Adagio made a disgusted face. Why would you do something like that? Sanada's grin stretched wider. Because I discovered that emotion can be carried by blood. And when Cinch died, she was feeling a lot of things. Then Adagio had to fucking ruin it, going, You utter moron! You just jeopardized us all! Now they won't be looking for magically emotional tweaking. They'll be looking for a murderer. She tried to raise her hand, but Sonata caught her wrist. Adagio came to a sudden halt, eyes widened. Sonata smirked at her. Like I said, it was delicious and nutritious. Sonata let her go. Adagio rubbed her wrist where Sonata's fingers had dug in. Her anger flared up. How dared you do this on your own? If you knew about this, you just should have told us. Well, I'm telling you now. Are you really drinking people's blood, said Arya. Sonata ran her hands down her ruined clothes. Most of it. And it actually works? Better than you can imagine. I haven't felt like this since before those asshats at school took our magic away. Sonata curled her arms and flexed. She had been toned before the newfound source of power, but nothing's changed about outward appearances, but she felt powerful enough. Do we have to do this, said Arya. Surely, if emotion transmits to blood, there had to be other ways to get it. Don't think so. Adagio crossed her arms. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. We should come up with a plan, and it has to be careful and well thought out. I say we take our time and make sure this is legitimate. No, you're not in charge anymore. Sonata put her hand on her hips. I'm the one to discover this. I put in the effort to figure out how it works. I've taken the precautions to not get caught. I got my power back, and we're all going to do this my way. How dare you! Adagio wound up for a punch. Sonata sidestepped and tripped Adagio as she went by. Whoops.
Just a thought.
Yeah.
But if the emotion runs through blood, they don't actually have to kill anybody for it. They could just rob a blood bank.
Yeah, but that'll be the void. I mean, the way Sonata figured it out is that fucking they have...
That's full of negative emotion.
Yeah. They had to work up the negative emotions and fucking make it pretty much apparent. And then she consumes them. Because earlier, she did a quick kill, but it was too quick for any emotion.
Oh, so she has to sadistically kill them slowly in order to feed herself.
Yep.
Yeah, in a way, this is a little something beyond sadism, because in order for them to survive, they have to feed off negative emotion, meaning they're essentially committing all these murders just so they can survive.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they'd starve to death.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Alright, let's see. As Adagio picked herself up, Sonata spun on her heel, clasping her hands behind her back. You're slow. You're weak. You don't know what I know. I'm tired of your attitude, and I'm not going to be your punching bag anymore. If you want your power back, you'll follow me and do exactly what I say. Sonata glanced over her shoulder at Arya, who still wore a shocked expression. If you two want in on this, get dressed. We're going out. Satisfied with her exit, she went up to her bedroom. Even though she was alone, she couldn't help but grin. She'd been dreaming of the moment where she finally spoke her mind. When it came, she hadn't expected to be covered in crusty blood and fist fighting with her sister, but it was still just as glorious as she had imagined, like a second high. She stripped out of her soiled clothes and headed for the bathroom, and after a quick shower, she threw on some music and opened her closet. What began to play? The Hollies' Long Cool Woman. That's a good song. She has taste. Sonata smiled. Definitely the little black dress tonight. She got dressed and did her makeup in a fuck subtlety and then fuck me theme. Sonata realized that getting targets to come to her would be a lot easier than trying to find them. The easy way, she figured, was to get a little slutty. Though as a creature that fed on negative energy, the actual act of sex wasn't exactly a priority. She went downstairs where the others were waiting. Adagio had professional clothes, perhaps because she couldn't fit into her fancier outfits anymore, and Arya's dress hung on her, and her makeup wasn't doing her any favors. Or anyone's. I'm taking your car, said Sonata, grabbing Adagio's keys out of the bowl beside the door. She started to protest, but Sonata cut her off. You two. Follow me. Sonata drove into town, leaving her sisters in another car. She headed for a shady bar in Crystal City, one where she knew it would be dark and there's no cameras. Sonata was no pickup artist, but within 5 minutes she had men talking to her at the bar. Almost too easy. Adagio and Aria watched from nearby. Sonata was careful with the drinks that came her way. Not that... Oh, God. Ooh, Siri. Ugh. Okay, what was that sound I made? Not that alcohol did much to a siren, but a smart man might be less inclined to make a move on a drunk girl. She wanted to keep her options open with as many potential targets as possible. She knew her sisters were watching. The three of them didn't feed on love like changelings, but surely they were envious of the attention Sonata was getting. Wait, they knew about changelings?
So
Strange. Huh. Something apparently they know that I don't? Huh. The three of them didn't feed on love like changelings, but surely they were envious of the attention Sonata was getting. Still, though, Sonata wasn't in it for that, and after half an hour or so, made her choice. She leaned forward and whispered to one ear, "Want to get out of here?" The guy's eyes lit up, and the two of them quickly paid and left the bar. She had a sore mental debate on whose car to take. Leaving his at the bar would arouse suspicion when he was dead, but Sonata decided it was better than taking it back to the Siren's house and having to dispose of it later, so she invited him into hers. He was attentive on the drive back. Sonata played along enough to keep him interested, though not to the point he was drenching her with lust. He smelled enough like lust as it was. They pulled into the driveway. He glanced up at the darkened house, but his attention was quickly brought back to Sonata as she ran her hand along his leg. The two of them leaned close, and then Sonata bit his ear off. Wow. We went the Mike Tyson route now.
I was about to say that.
Is this like a dark comedy sort of thing? Because it just like lays that shit on like immediate.
Like fucking.
And it has sort of a comedic tone, despite it being a dark fic.
Yeah, and extremely
From
gore.
Dark, there's a difference. I don't know.
But yeah, he ended up going, "What the fuck?" Sonata smiled and spit it out on his lap. He took one look at it and yanked the door open. He forgot about the seatbelt, and Sonata tugged at his arm while he struggled with it. The overhead light showed him the blood on her lips. He finally managed to free himself and got out of the car, turning to face her. Sonata opened her door and got out, and with one jump, she leaped on the top of the car and made a 3-point landing on the roof. Showed him the ear, retrieving from where it fell, and licked it. He bolted for the woods. The other car with the Dodge and Aria pulled up just then. Huh?
Bolted for the woods, worst idea. That's how everybody dies.
Yay!
You don't bolt for the woods, you bolt for civilization.
The other car with
morons.
Adagio and Aria pulled up just then. He went that way, said Sonata, as the two of them got out. They could hear him crashing blindly through the trees. Come on. She ran after him. High heels were needed here, but she barely felt the ground beneath her feet. A smell of blood and fear was in her nose, and Sonata knew she was faster, stronger, and more powerful. That alone was a high, but nothing compared to the one she was chasing. Sonata licked her lips. She caught up with him easy enough. Sonata moved like a ghost in comparison to her panicked prey. He didn't even know she was right behind him until she gave his shoulder a light shove. He stumbled but recovered, glancing over his shoulder, eyes huge. "I thought you wanted some action," said Sonata, not even breathing hard at all. She kicked him in the back of the knee, and this time he went down. And she was on him before he could even recover. She flipped him on his back, straddling his chest and driving her knees into his biceps. It didn't stop him from flopping. She didn't weigh as much, but unless he was an experienced wrestler, there was no way he was getting free.
Can anybody fucking see Sonata just Naruto running? The fucking hand thrown back. And then she just taps him on the shoulder and pushes him over.
Especially when... Yeah, okay. Okay, fucking... Alright. Especially when Sonata reached back and grabbed one of his ankles, jerking the leg forward and hyperextending the knee until something popped. He howled in pain. Sonata heard footsteps as her sisters arrived. Partially for their benefit, but mostly for herself, she ran her fingers over the man's wound, showing him his blood in the moonlight. The taste on her fingers. Oh, yes, that's it. She glanced back at Adagio and Arya. Well, what are you waiting for? Dig in. What are you? The man began. Sonata interrupted him, grabbing his nose and twisting it until it cracked. More screams, though with a little nasal gurgle this time. What are we supposed to do? Asked Adagio. You want the blood. He's filled with blood. Use your imagination. She scraped her fingernails around the skin of his neck, opening shallow cuts that oozed. Adagio made a face, and the man burst out, Stop! What are you doing? Sonata shifted her hips slightly and smiled. By way of reply to both of them, she said, I hope you like it raw. Adagio would not let herself be teased and stepped forward. She knelt, pulling her hair back and lowering her face towards his neck. Sonata swatted. Get your own place! Adagio gave her a dark look, but yanked his shirt down at the collar and drove her fingers into his flesh at the clavicle. The man went through a fresh spasm of pain, and his flailing arm caught her across the face. Adagio slapped him right back and used his recovery to put her mouth to the wound she had just created. The pure fear hit her system, and Sonata saw her shoulders clench and release as she inhaled. Adagio pressed her face down harder, her throat working to provide suction to consume as much as possible. There's got to be a better way, Arya muttered. Sonata looked at her. Are you going to drink or not? Arya hesitated, but then came forward slowly. She mimicked Adagio's opening on the other side and took a temporary lick. After that, her reaction was much the same. Sonata looked down at the quarry and grinned. No more holding back. His terror spiked again, and she went for his throat. And that's the end of chapter 5.
Oh. Dumb fucker shouldn't have run for the woods. She's like, they're like freaking feral beasts now, aren't they?
Basically.
Yeah.
I think they've actually got like friggin' different powers than they did when they had the siren abilities. Now they're like
Vampires.
they're faster, they're stronger, all that kind of crap.
Well, especially
Looks like
Sonata.
everybody's giving. Hey, gods, it looks like a few people are left on what you're doing right now.
Wait, how many people are in here? 8?
Let me check. 7 for me, but they're still loving it. Isn't that, guys, how you feeling about it?
Yeah,
Chat, how you feeling about it?
I think I'm going to call it, though. I mean, it's a nice, good stopping point, a halfway point.